Welcome into Rover Sports, the show. It is Tuesday, and we are in our usual studio tonight, and we cannot wait to discuss so many sports stories, so many pop culture stories, but really the world of sports, the world of NBA basketball, and the world of Augusta National. And Bruce, myself and you, we went to Augusta on Sunday, our first time ever going to the Masters. Pimento cheese sandwiches, barbecue sandwiches, all types of food. And
it must be dinner time because you're talking about food to start the show.
You're eating sweet and sour, or hot and sour soup from our good friends across the way. But Bruce, how was your experience at the Masters? What were your big takeaways from Augusta National Golf Club?
Well, we were very lucky that we saw an epic performance. We knew we were going to the Masters. That was fun in itself, the final round. But to see Tiger have what many believe was the best comeback in sports history after multiple back fusions to the point where he literally couldn't arise out of a chair or walk at all. So to the difference between winning a competitive golf tournament, a major with all the best players in the world, to the point where over a series of years he was able to rehab to get to the point where he's actually able to win, is something that's really, really special.
I knew that Tiger Woods was going to win the Masters Championship. I knew that he had a great opportunity to win because last year, Bruce, he was able to come in second at the PGA Championship. He played at the British Open. He played really, really well. So it's not like Tiger Woods suddenly went from worst to first. This guy was a top 12 player in the world at the time. So it's not exactly like the biggest upset. It wasn't like a 16 seed beating a 1 seed. This guy was playing really, really good golf. But the fact that he won the Masters, the fact that he culminated the comeback, and really in American sports, we love the comeback story. We love athletes that are once great players and then they dip down and then they come back to prominence, back to rising. You know, we look at Brett Favre, and he was addicted to painkillers. He was addicted to drugs, and he came back and he battled through the adversity of his father passing and had the greatest performance in Monday Night Football history. You know, we talk about guys that come back and come back into our lives. And really here in America, I think we're a very forgiving country. You know, I think that I never like to get political on the show, but the most revered president in the history of the United States had some of the same personal issues that Tiger Woods had. You know, John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe was very similar. He had infidelity issues as well. And we look at these things in our country, and infidelity specifically, and if you're able to conquer them, I think that for Tiger Woods, physically not being able to move at all, his public life being really casted out there for everybody to criticize, I think that just makes this comeback even more spectacular, how he battled through this adversity. Because when Tiger was first coming up, he was superhuman, he was unstoppable, he was a machine. But now that you got to see his human side, you got to see him getting, you know, pulled over several times, it really makes this story the ultimate comeback story because of the adversity.
I think so, too. And we're here with Al Zafiri, beautiful RDR Studios here in Delaware County. And I know, Al, being a casual golf fan, I'm sure you watched a bit of it with some interest. And I wanted to know what your take on the Masters was.
As a guy who doesn't watch much golf at all, would be dead on.
There's our first call of the day.
Looks like they don't want you to talk at all today,
So much
Al.
for that.
So much for you, Al. Welcome in the Rover Sports. You are live with Bruce Spencer and, of course, Al Zafiri. How can we help you tonight?
What's up? It's Kristen. You're here, calling in, Gosh, show support to the Bear,
Absolutely. My nickname on YouTube is The Bear. I'm called The Bear, look like a bear. to some people on YouTube. So it's not the most flattering for maybe women out there.
bear?
If you're a bear, they would tell.
Yeah,
Is Al the Papa Bear?
Well, Chris, it's funny because it's not the most. I don't want to go up to future dates and women and say, like, I'm the bear. I am the bear.
Hold on.
But for some
that
reason,
has worked for Al. That has worked.
I would back it up for a second. That has gone a long way. Don't mind dipping your hand in the honey jar, if you know what I mean.
women find that endearing. So
Yeah.
Chris,
Women love bears.
Chris, what is on your mind? What is going on, my friend?
Well, the Masters ended. Congratulations to Tiger Woods and everything. But I know a lot of people, on Twitter and social media have been saying that he's the GOAT and everything. Of I don't know if they're referring to all sports or the sport of golf itself. But do you think he's a GOAT or he's the greatest of all time in the golf world, or do you think somebody else up in there is way better than him, or like what's your view on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's two guys that I think are at the top of the mantle in golf. It's Tiger and Jack Nicklaus. But in terms of a talent standpoint, I got to go with Tiger Woods being the greatest of all time because Jack Nicklaus never had the back issues. Tiger Woods has also had to beaten guys like Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka. Phil Mickelson is a tremendous player. Now, I know Jack was competing with Arnold Palmer, but the technology, the kind of athletes, and also in golf, you have to face international competition in this modern age. And Tiger Woods was the most dominant golfer for about like a 15 to 20 year span. From 1997 to like 2007, he was just untouchable. So I'm going to have to go with him. I didn't grow up to see Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus had 18 championships. I'd still go Tiger 1 and Jack 2, but I think it's those two guys. What do you think, Bruce? Who is your pinnacle of golf? Who's your pinnacle?
Well, certainly there's no doubt that Jack and Tiger are at the top. Ben Hogan, his career was shortened by near fatal, hard to say that, near fatal car accident, and he came back and actually won a major. Some would argue Sam Snead, Ben Hogan, there's certainly Walter Hagen. There's some great, you go back in history, there's some great players. But merely in terms of majors, you've got Jack and Tiger, and now Tiger is back on the trail of hunting to exceed Jack's, I believe 18 majors is the record.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to go with that answer, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree. I'm not into sport. Not sports. I'm not into golf that much. It's not my cup of tea. But
I get that.
I think Tiger. If I was gonna say, if I had to take a vote, I think I would go with Tiger because with the back injury and the not getting up in bed or from bed.
Yeah.
And all the problems in his life, and he's able to come back and bounce back and stuff like that. That's kind of amazing, You see other players like the flu game and stuff like that. I would compare it to the flu game for Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
In the 90s, I would compare it to that. It's a big comeback. It's a good comeback.
Or Peterson. I'm trying to think of other guys. Maybe
cool.
Michael Phelps.
Because you being a young man there, the fact that you could reference something before your time, I think, is impressive.
The Jordan flu game, Utah Jazz, that was tremendous. Yeah. And Chris, have you been watching? Do you watch the NBA playoffs? Are you a big NBA guy?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big NBA guy. I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, so I've been keeping my eye on that. Disappointed on that first game against the Magic.
You've had a tough. You really like to root for. I give you credit because you're not rooting for like the Yankees and the LA Lakers. Yeah. Like you actually live. I'm not breaking news here. You are a San Diego Chargers fan. You were the Chargers fan. So you're Chargers and Raptors. You haven't experienced like the incredible pinnacles of championships. You like the smaller market kind of underdog teams. And the Raptors now, they were titled LeBronto. Because freaking LeBron ends your season every year. So why are you a Raptors fan? Do you just like that adversity and what they've had to battle through these last 5 years?
No, the funny thing is, all the teams that I go for, San Diego, I was born in Anaheim, but I moved to San Diego, so, I'm a Padres fan. So, it just, it's all family, I got family in Toronto, so it's just all,
Jurassic Park. Have you ever been, boy, that stadium, Jurassic Park must be crazy.
I want to just, there's breaking news. great. I want to thank you for the call, and I've got to give you some breaking news here.
Thanks so much, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Bryce Harper just took a fastball on the hand, and I think it bears commenting.
Let's see if it's hand or elbow. It's elbow. It's forearm.
It's almost forearm.
It's forearm. It's his left. Looks like his left forearm.
That's going to kill.
It's his left forearm.
That's going to be a stinger.
And he's able to stay in the game, but obviously here at Philly and all over the country, frankly, we keep our eye on Bryce.
That's 330 million of home.
There's 330 million reasons why we had to break through that call. And it looks like he's okay. It looks like he's okay.
Well,
but we certainly
load the bases.
Yeah, it looks like the Phillies are starting off a lot better than they did. Already load the bases, no outs, and we got JT Romuto up the bat here. So we'll keep you guys posted on
absolutely. And the
Philadelphia
Phillies, them losing that game to the Nationals when we were here in studio last Tuesday when they had a 6-1 lead, it shattered them. It almost broke the early part of this month because they then lost 16-1 to the Nationals. The Nationals won the series against the Phillies. That blown game really cost the Phillies. And then Zach Eflin, who's been the best pitcher maybe in baseball, he gives up like 8 runs to the Marlins, and they get smashed by the Marlins. So the Phillies are treading water. We have the Braves, the Mets. It is the most competitive division that you're ever going to see in baseball.
Well, you're actually watching one of the. This series is going to be the series you watch throughout the season. Mets Phillies. I think this is what you're going to be watching.
Not Braves.
I think the Braves will dip their toe into the water a little bit.
Nationals.
But I still think the Mets are a better team. But
much better pitching, certainly.
Yeah.
And Dr. Stu Cohen, I want to just interrupt and say
the Mets too.
Dr. Stu Cohen is one of our charter rovers, great guy, and he's on the watch party there, Bruce Grossiger watch party, and I wanted to give him a shout out that Bryce is still in the game, lower forearm and wrist. We appreciate the medical update from Dr. Cohen, and all of you feel free to comment on my live stream page. We've got a bunch of people watching, and it's really exciting. So,
tell us about the Mets real quick, Alan, why you are maybe the most fearful of the New York Mets.
Well, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves since, 2011, 2012. The Mets have owned the Phillies for the most part. I think they got 75% of the wins over the Phillies since that time frame.
Bam, grand slam, baby.
No, that's no grand slam.
Yeah.
Should be a 2-run dinger right there.
I know. That looked like it was going.
It was premature.
B3.
It's still kind of windy out here in the Philly area, so, not as bad as it was last night, but you might still see things get knocked down that would normally leave the yard.
So it's a two-run double there.
I'm glad JT's starting to heat up a little bit as we go along here. He had a nice hit yesterday to the opposite field. I don't know if he's a home run guy. And also, I think that the Phillies have the best celebration right now in baseball, the Fortnite. The high five, that Bryce Harper demonstrates.
So that's a total gapper between center field and left, perfectly placed by JT. Brings it 2 runs. Phillies lead 2-0 early in the game.
Every show is going to be, now that these TVs are here, it is so distracting, even when I'm eating dinner.
In a good way.
And each show is pretty much going to be in the moment Phillies commentary. Because oh my goodness. I can't control myself.
Scott. Now here's a guy, Scott
It's
Kingery.
launched.
It's gone. Mets are done.
3
home run.
It's a 5-0 now. It's a 3-run home run by Scott Kingery.
We said it was game over last time, but Scotty King, go ahead.
Here's the thing: is Scott Kingery. I kind of feel bad for the guy a little bit. I've always been I like Scott Kingery since he was in the minors. I followed him. He's a guy that they kind of equated to Chase Utley occasionally. His work ethic, the type of play he does. Mm-hmm. His bat has been hot.
Yeah.
And he's only batted I think this is the 13th or 14th time he's batted.
He's a young kid.
He's looking good. 3-run home run.
So he's taking up Franco's place tonight.
Obviously, Max for the Mets is not pitching well tonight. He hasn't gotten out yet. He's already let up 5 runs. But this is a. I think this is going to be very back and forth for the rest of the season. Mets, Phillies, Mets, Phillies.
Yeah.
Because Mets fans travel. You asked me about the Nats. Why not the Nats? And technically, I guess they're equidistant from Philly to Washington and Philly to New York.
Yeah.
But my thing is I think Mets fans travel more.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear a lot of split stadiums. It's like one of those games where you can't just listen to it and know who's doing well by the sound of the crowd. I mean, if you watch last night's game, you couldn't tell. There was a large
plenty of Mets fans last night. It was an
They're
ESPN
diehards.
game. Pretty interesting.
The Mets are diehard fans.
Pretty interesting that they had technology literally on a plane from Georgia, where we were able to sit in our seat and just hit one button and watch the Phillies game in the air. And that certainly made the trip a lot shorter.
And, Bruce, that brings us to our next topic, which is NBA playoffs. We saw Dikembe Mutombo at the airport, the big man. And Dikembe Mutombo is a guy that you immediately know who he is because, we saw Matt Ryan at the airport. And Matt Ryan, the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, was in the Philly airport. He just looks like, any other guy. But, even if T.J. McConnell, even if McConnell was at the airport, I don't know if I'd be able to pick him out. But the fact is, Mutombo's like 7 feet tall and really a distinct voice as well. Bruce, last night the Sixers were the Nets and the Sixers were pretty much all tied up, and then the Nets just completely fell apart. That third quarter, the Sixers go on a 21-0 run. Embiid plays so much better.
Well, here's the thing. Let's set the stage for a second.
What?
The first game, they didn't
horrible.
They didn't want to look like they didn't want to play basketball.
It's
almost like they assumed it was going to happen. They'll walk right through the Nets. It didn't look like they were all there. They were all cooking.
They tried to mail it in.
It actually looked like there was some chemistry issues with this team.
Yeah, it's a good point. Now, did you not have that kind of same feeling the first half of this last game? Did you not kind of it started off pretty good. They looked like they came out strong. Then they closed the gap, and it was only a 1-point differential going into the half. So
it looked bad. It looked like you're waiting.
Yeah, it looked like the Brooklyn Nets were for real.
This team usually implodes in the third quarter, but alternatively, they had a record. They scored 51 points.
They tied the record, I believe, or did they break it?
They might have tied the record.
51 in one quarter?
Yeah.
51 in one quarter, and this is all time, all in.
Yeah.
And they scored it. We watched the game. It seemed like Embiid scored 20 points in the first 3 minutes. He just went off. Yeah. And also,
he was getting to the foul line a lot.
Ben Simmons got a lot of ridicule for his first game. He came up small in that first game, and I know you wanted to share some commentary on that.
Yeah, here's my commentary. Ben Simmons at LSU was not liked at all, Ben Simmons. And the reason why I think the Philadelphia fans don't like Ben Simmons as much is because Ben, well, he is a little bit quieter, but he has a combination of Ben Simmons, I think, is quiet, and I think Ben Simmons is cocky. And that's the thing about Ben Simmons. Embiid is
not personal.
Embiid is the most personal. It's kind of tough for Simmons because Embiid is almost so personable and he's so loved that if I were Ben Simmons, I might actually resent Embiid as well. Because did you see Embiid last night? The ball had sweat on it. He took his towel, went up from the bench and wiped the basketball. Embiid does these funny things all the time. This city loves Embiid, and Ben Simmons, this whole city wants him to shoot. He has these high expectations being the #1 pick. He's so dang talented, and I think that the city honestly is way too harsh on Ben Simmons. If I had to pick one guy from this whole Sixers team for the next 5 to 10 years, it's definitely not Embiid. Ben Simmons will have a much better career than Embiid because Ben is more talented than Embiid, and Embiid has all the injuries. Ben Simmons, to me, I think is one of the most underappreciated players in basketball. He is a freak of nature, the way that he plays the game. Well, he's the straw that stirs this drink.
I can agree with you to a point. I think it's the lack of trying sometimes that gets... Here's the thing.
Apathy?
I think here's your thing is, yes, Embiid is not just a larger-than-life human being. He's a larger-than-life personality. He's been embraced by this fan base. If I had to put all the Philly sports superstars up, another home run, 3-run home run. Oh, my God. Raquel Franco.
Philly's being
Franco,
business tonight.
Home run number 5 on the season.
Well, we're on air with Magic.
Save some more. Save some for tomorrow.
I was going to say, I don't think Nats is going to make it out of the first inning if this keeps up.
Well, the Phillies they're an angry team right now, it appears.
Well,
they're really angry.
That was embarrassing, losing
this
the way they did last
night. We can't freaking talk about sports because this is one of the greatest innings that I've seen the Phillies play in a long time.
And there's no outs.
And
there's no outs in this game.
Michael Franco. Michael Franco.
Michael is how you say his name.
I don't even know what position he's playing.
That's better than A-Rod. Alex Rodriguez calls him Michael. Well, and he's getting paid a lot more money than you.
Are we going Phillies or Sixers? Because you have to swerve back to the Sixers.
Let's stick with the Sixers. We can come back and catch up to this inning. With everybody's,
this inning's going to take another hour.
Yeah. And these TVs are so distracting. But go ahead with your Sixers.
So my point is, I get why Simmons is underrated. Yep, pitching changed. Didn't make it to the first.
Didn't make it for 1 out. What is this going to do to his ERA?
Yeah, big time.
Trevor Rosenthal on our hands.
He did not. He's a bigger than life personality, like I said with Embiid. It's hard to compete with that, but he could compete. That's my point with Ben Simmons. I've been a big Ben Simmons critic for a bit. Here's the thing: is how long we watched last 2 weeks ish worth of basketball, maybe even longer, where the Sixers were kind of mailing it in. They tried to get that 50 win under their belt, but most of the game was mailed in.
Totally. They went to Orlando, Atlanta lost.
Why couldn't they put Ben in with some of the scrubs just to go shoot some threes? Shoot some outside the paint. That's where that should have been happening. It just doesn't look. My fear is, I don't care how injury prone Embiid is. If Ben Simmons is going to be afraid of the limelight, what good is he? That's how I look at it. If he's going to be afraid to take that important shot, if he's always going to be worried about dishing the ball off to somebody else when it comes down to crunch time, why should
I don't think that Ben Simmons is afraid to. I don't think that he's afraid to he might be afraid to shoot a jump shot, but Ben Simmons, I think, will go inside and he will put up the hook shot. And Ben Simmons is a great passer. Like Ben Simmons, we have guys on our team that are closers. You have Harris and Jimmy Butler that will score those points. Jimmy Butler is the closer.
J.J. Redick is a
J.J. Redick. So Ben Simmons, whether you like it or not, I doubt that that Ben Simmons will be off of the 76ers. He is your guy, and I think people are going to have to accept that.
Let me make this abundantly clear. I do not want Ben Simmons to leave. My point is the two things that scare me the most is the inability for growth in this area or the wanting to. You've had a chance. The last 2+ weeks of basketball have been garbage time basketball. Let's just call it for what it is.
Most of the regular season is garbage time basketball.
Saying, once you hit that, in NBA, you notice, and LeBron was the king of doing this. Once they locked in that spot where they think they're going to be, they're not fighting to move up to number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in any way.
It's bench time. It's time to get the bench involved.
He sits there. It looks like LeBron never even played a game of basketball. Then boom, hits the postseason and he's lighting it up.
Exactly, and the switch.
And I think this is what this team was doing, which it wasn't the greatest things because there was still time for them to gel together because some of the guys are still technically new to the team. My point is that would have been a great time for him to go up and throw some garbage time. Is he worried about getting laughed at because he shot a few air balls? Is he worried about just people making fun of him more because he's not? I would rather see Ben Simmons shoot 10 to 20 jumpers, three-pointers, whatever you want to call, than not doing and miss them all than not doing any at all.
I think Simmons,
most people in this fan base would agree with you.
We're hitting why Ben Simmons is not fully embraced and loved. It's because he does have an arrogant side to him. Maybe the Kardashian thing, but Ben Simmons, even within the NBA, players don't really like Simmons because he is cocky, arrogant. He does have those qualities, absolutely.
And I think the other thing that the other little thing is he's that one piece away from being that mega superstar talent. I don't want to say LeBron-esque, but close to it. Just think if Ben Simmons could shoot a jumper or had at least the confidence to take the shot, you have to then respect him because everybody knows Ben's going to drive in. He's going to drive in, and that's it. So why do you have to let him sit down and take the shot? But if he starts making a couple of them, they're going to respect him. His game goes from here to here overnight.
I will say, and I'm going to let Bruce talk about Simmons. I will say this, though, about Simmons is that his free throw shooting does look so much better somehow.
Yes, and again, some of us, we have a camera. He used to shoot with his left elbow, his lead elbow, way to the side, and he used to throw it with side spin like, what's it, Yannick Noah? Is that his name?
Joakim.
Yannick is his dad, actually.
Or Sean Marion.
Joakim Noah. In other words, when you shoot a basketball with side spin, it hits the rim. It always misses. Right. But obviously, he's had some coaching where his lead arm, he's really rolling the ball off of his lead arm, and his free throw shooting is so much better.
Yes.
And all he has to do is extrapolate that to his jump shot, even taking foul shots. And I agree with Al. I think that he doesn't have to take three-pointers. He needs to take mid-range jumpers. He's 6'10". If he can start hitting them, the people are going to have to play up on him, and he's going to get that first step and go past them and be jamming. He's going to be like Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with Kevin Durant, you got to play up on him. You play up on him, he goes right around you and jams it. He's the same height. He's the same height as Durant. I don't have expectations that he will be able to shoot like Durant because Durant is a great shooter. But even if he was a serviceable or good shooter, that would be helpful.
As long as you have to respect his shot. That's all you have to do for him. For him to be in that LeBron-esque type situation, you just have to respect his shot. Nobody respects his shot because he doesn't respect his shot. And to the counters also, the other reason I think he doesn't get as much credit is last year's playoffs. He just looked like he was afraid. Okay?
Deer in headlights?
Yeah. I mean, the Celtics just – not just him, though. It wasn't on him, and I don't want to put on a – you put up 3 points in a game? Just think about Lowry did this year. When he put up 0 points, I think Lowry did in that game.
I think Ben Simmons put up 1 point.
Or was it 1? I'm sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely
Do you
right.
remember that Wilt Chamberlain meme where and it was Ben Simmons holding up a picture of 1?
Yeah. And that's my point. He has to – it's not just take the shot, but he has to want that ball in his hands because let me ask this question. NBA Finals – or I'm sorry, Eastern Conference Finals you got the Greek freak in the middle of the lane, and Ben Simmons has to drive it with a few seconds left. He knows what's coming on. Giannis knows what's coming on. He knows what's going to happen. He doesn't have to play it any different. He doesn't have to respect his shot in any way.
Now that I think of it, Ben Simmons is the only NBA player probably playing right now that is under 7 feet that doesn't have a fadeaway jump shot. I've never seen Ben Simmons shoot a fadeaway jump shot. And the problem is, that's a problem with Brett Brown, Bruce, and the development plan. Because like what Al was saying, he doesn't practice at all. And even if he failed, like even during warm-ups,
we really don't know that.
He does shoot threes in warm-ups, actually, you know, that we've gone to the game and seen, and the crowd absolutely loves it. And Ben needs to take his game to the next level, and he can. Now, Bruce, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to let you speak on this. How do you think this series is going to play out with Brooklyn? How do you feel these next 2 games in Brooklyn are going to play out? And then I'll ask you a bigger picture question after that.
I think the Sixers are going to split in Brooklyn, and I see it as a 6-game win, 6-game series, a long series that the Sixers will win. There was a comment by Stephen A. Smith that I want you guys to talk about, essentially saying that if the Sixers lose to the Nets, that Brett Brown will definitely be fired. And I tend to agree with that statement. And we talk a little Brett Brown here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about him as a coach? Do you believe this is potentially one and done? And what are your thoughts? I was
going to talk about Brett Brown. I think that Brett Brown is one of the more hated coaches in the NBA. He was here for the tank, so he was here for losing and losing. But this town forgave him because he didn't have the talent. Then Brad Stevens absolutely decapitated Brett Brown in 5 games when the Sixers had just as good of a team as Boston without Kyrie, without Gordon Hayward. So the fact that went 5 games was a real detriment. And Brett Brown on the sidelines, he shows no composure. He acts like a lunatic. He kind of acts like Bruce Pearl. Brett Brown is the ultimate yeller. It looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. His image couldn't be any worse on the sideline. He's always yelling. He's always angry. And then he's also seems like he's not drawing up plays. Brett Brown has no structure to the offense. He doesn't have a lot of plays. He doesn't have a lot of structure. It's a lot of run and gun. So the fact is with Brett Brown, everybody thinks that it isn't just in Philadelphia. everybody thinks that Brett Brown's a liability to these Philadelphia 76ers, and that's kind of an issue with Brett Brown. And I think it is because he doesn't call the plays. It is because of the sideline attitudes. And it's also the Sixers have so much talent now that if they lose to Brooklyn, this whole thing is going to blow up no matter what. Listen, if they lose to Brooklyn, because Jimmy Butler's going to get really mad. If
the Sixers lose to Brooklyn, Brett Brown is done. I've actually kind of been on this fence with Brett Brown for a very long time. I would say I was more of a Brett Brown hater than a supporter for a good time. I don't dislike the guy. I think he could be a good coach. I don't know if he has what he needs to direct a team of this superstar caliber, of a Jimmy Butler, of an Embiid, of a Ben Simmons, of a Tobias Harris. I mean, all these guys, can he handle that? And I've said this and I said this a while back. He was here when they were in a losing culture. Okay. Sometimes it's not good to keep your leader around during that. It was his fault. It wasn't Brett Brown's fault. He did well considering with what he had to work with at times. My point being is, when you're here with your losing culture, sometimes you got to clean house a little bit to get that winning culture back in. Yeah. But I think we're past that. I think at this point now, I think Brett Brown is starting to find himself. If anybody's seen or heard about his little speech he gave before that third quarter breakout they had with 51 points.
No, tell us about that.
I can't because you don't want cursing on the show.
Well, don't then.
A lot of expletives.
I thought it was because you weren't there.
No, that too.
I can't because I don't know anything about it.
Put it this way: Jimmy Butler came out and said he just loved it. He was all about it. He was dropping a few expletives. He liked to see that side of Brett. They saw this aggressive side because I think what Brett did is he saw game one like we did. He saw this mailed-in BS game.
He saw guys texting.
Yeah.
He saw,
which was, I think, a big
Amir Johnson showing a cell phone and looking at a cell phone during a professional game. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can remember.
I didn't care that much about that at all.
Well, listen, you should. I think it's a very bad look.
I think
because you teach, honestly, if you've got elementary school kids playing a baseball game, Pop Warner, you don't want them looking at their cell phones. But you've got professionals that people emulate, especially kids, looking at the cell phone. There's guys, regardless of how much money they're paying, that's very unprofessional.
Well, there's two things here.
I've never seen that.
With this Amir Johnson story, there's two things. One is that Amir Johnson's daughter was very sick and he was very
I don't think so. I think that was made up.
If he's lying, it's the worst karma it's bad karma. Really bad karma. You don't want to say someone's sick.
Can I say something?
And it's just terrible karma if that's the excuse.
Well, let me comment on this. I believe that Joel Embiid is such a team player that he basically didn't want to throw Amir under the bus, and he made that up. And he's very smart. He made that up on the moment that his daughter was sick. And you know what Amir Johnson said? He goes, I take full responsibility. My daughter's fine. So that was something that, just like, part of the bro code, fraternity code, something happens and you just make up a white lie.
It could be girls sliding into the DMs. That's what it could be, like a hot girl that Amir Johnson.
No, we have no idea. Let's not even speculate.
Yeah,
it's just a bad look.
It's a bad precedent. And
the point being is, let's be honest. If this happened during last night's game, you probably wouldn't care as much.
You probably wouldn't see it.
You're handling the other team by 20-plus points. 51-point. They set a record for the team. The most
142, maybe
142. It was 140, and they broke it by like 3 or 4 points. The point is you probably wouldn't care as much. The fact is, they're mailing a game in, and they're down. It's the end of the. This wasn't like in the beginning of the game, the first few minutes. He's like, "Hey, check out this chick just texted me, whatever." No, it was at the end of the game. They look like hot garbage. You have an angry fan base. I know if I'm Brett Brown, I'm fuming. And I'm upset, and then to find out that it looks bad on Brett Brown to find out that your team is looking at their cell phone during a game, and you're getting it handed to you. I would have snapped his cell phone in half if I'm Brett Brown. That's why it's appalling. Now, there's plenty of times guys have gone in the back during a game because of family emergencies, whatever they had to do.
But they're not on camera. They're even using a restroom. You don't see that.
You got caught.
Obviously, these are human beings. They're not robots.
Yeah.
So if there was truly an emergency, he would have excused himself, gone to the locker room, and you never would have seen it.
I actually think that too. The fact that, like, trying to connect the dots, if the daughter was sick, like, why would you be showing it to your friend? Like, why is that even?
And why are you giggling?
Why are you talking? Why wouldn't you just say it? And also, it's not something that you want to even share with your friend if your daughter is sick. But again, we can't comment on it. We don't have proof on the story, but it's fishy for sure.
The point is, you sucked, and now you're looking at your cell phone at the end of the game. And you shouldn't have done it.
Let's talk about Ben Simmons' line, because this adds into our Ben Simmons. Ben
Simmons
with the post-game line. Ben Simmons says, if you're going to boost, stay on that side. First of all, Ben Simmons, you're so much better than the Brooklyn Nets. The Sixers expect a championship. Booing is a part of sports. Like, just that's the reality of sports, Ben Simmons. And the fact that he said that line, too. The great news about this team is you have Jimmy Butler, you have Tobias Harris, you have all these personalities on this basketball team. It's a great test for Brett Brown, because if Brett Brown is any good, then you're going to know if he can control these personalities. If the Sixers lose and Jimmy Butler's flipping out, you're going to know if Brett Brown has control of that locker room. Because after game one, with the texting, the team didn't respond to Brett Brown. It's going to be self-evident whether Brett Brown will be back next year.
Yeah, and
period.
It all ends how this ends up. That'll make a difference.
We're going to give you. Let's give you a scoring update, Al.
3 errors for the Mets.
Oh yeah, it wasn't just pitching, but the pitching had a lot to do with it. Mats didn't make it out of the first inning. It is 10-0 off 5 runs for the Phils. A bunch of walks came in. I forget who came in for him. But he put up 23 pitches. Him alone. The guy that came in relief him put up 23 pitches in the first inning. So that means they have almost combined like 60-plus pitches that they put up.
I don't remember. Obviously, I've seen some big innings. But to lead off a game.
45-minute inning. For
a 45-minute, 10-run inning, and Philly's fever is alive and well right here in Philly.
We almost got through the whole order twice. We almost lapped the order.
Kingery was the last hit. So, yeah, I mean, except for the last 3, everybody had 2 hits. Or 2 chances.
A magical 10-run inning. How many times do you see that in the sport of baseball? Let's recap NBA playoffs and then get to some fun stories. Last night, the biggest comeback in NBA playoff history, 31 points. The Warriors are a weird team. They sleepwalk through these NBA playoffs. Kevin Durant, very unlikable team by a lot of people hate the Golden State Warriors. I don't hate them as much. I love their style of
when
play.
When you win, people hate you. Let's be honest.
Exactly right.
They do.
Exactly right. The NBA playoffs, the fact that it's a 7-game series, the Clippers are probably at best going to win 1 more game, and it might be a 6-game series. But it's just very likable to see Landry Shamet. A lot of people today are saying that the Tobias Harris trade was not good because the Sixers gave up all their assets and because Landry is doing well with the Clippers.
I don't sell that.
I think that Landry is a good player. I think that he does have he does have kind of a ceiling. He'll always be a good shooter, a 15-point game guy, and I'm happy for him and the Clippers. The fact is that Tobias Harris trade was brilliant by the Sixers. What do you think of the NBA playoffs so far, Bruce? How entertaining has it been to you, and what are some big storylines that you like about these playoffs?
Well, firstly, just to recap for some people who didn't see the box score, Landry Shamet capped a 31-point turnaround. So the Golden State Warriors at home had a 31-point lead, and guess what? The LA Clippers came back and beat them, and the guy who hit the winning shot was Landry Shamet, the very Landry Shamet that you met last year at the Under Armour Clinic, Wichita State, nice, humble guy, Midwestern guy.
Humble.
And, again, you look at his line, he had 12 points, but in crunch time, he had the stones. He went in there, took that final 3, dagger, and the Clippers beat the Warriors, and that's big news because 31 points is the biggest deficit that to ever be surmounted by a team in the playoffs in NBA history.
Absolutely,
and we're talking, that's a long time.
And
that's 100 years.
And absolutely 0 people watch that game because what person is staying up? What person is staying up to watch that game?
Well, especially when you're down 31 points. I mean,
and it's a Warriors West Coast 10:30 game.
You're watching, even if you're on the West Coast, and for you to watch.
Nobody's watching that game.
But I'm saying at one point,
and it's over. You don't.
Most people are turning it off and catching it on SportsCenter the next day.
Yeah.
At that point, and I don't blame them to a point. And like you said, everybody expects the Warriors to go back. to the finals. Like, that's what everybody expects. Everybody expects them to run through, just like LeBron did in the East Coast when he was still over here.
Yes.
And then decided to go to the Lakers like a genius.
But I love the playoffs without LeBron James. It's kind of a breath of fresh air. We're going to see a new champion now.
Let me ask this question: would it be interesting if the Warriors got knocked out?
I think it would be interesting because it would leave everything wide open. Just the same way this year in March Madness, there are 4 teams. None of them had won the national championship. You're going to be crowning a new king. So if the Warriors are out, everybody's in play. Certainly on the East, you've got 4 really good teams there. In the West has kind of had a down
You know why
year.
that would be more interesting too?
Maybe
because
James Harden. Look at Houston.
If the Warriors lose, Kevin Durant and Draymond, who have been feuding, Durant will probably definitely leave if the Warriors lose. It will be an ugly breakup.
Yep.
And also that also means that that Draymond Green could be leaving. Boogie's not going to be there for the playoffs. I actually think, and this might be insensitive to DeMarcus Cousins, but the fact is DeMarcus Cousins on the floor is a walking technical foul, and he always has been. The Warriors are actually 2 points better when he's not playing. The fact that Boogie is out for the whole playoffs, the Warriors will be just fine without DeMarcus Cousins.
I
he had a quadricep injury last night,
By the way,
he is gone.
Also, another news flash. He doesn't want to be called Boogie Cousins anymore. He wants to be called DeMarcus Cousins.
Sorry about that.
I'm sure he won't.
Sorry, Boogie.
I'm sure he won't care.
So guess what? Other playoff storylines. The fact is, the NBA playoffs, the first round, the Blazers and the Thunder. That's a good series. The Pistons are an absolute joke. Giannis is the best player in the world. I don't think the Magic are a real threat at all to beat Toronto.
I don't think Toronto's going to lose, but I think they're going to give them the run for their money. If I had to choose between playing either the Nets or Magic, at this point I would rather play the Magic. And not just from what I've seen so far. I think the Magic have some building blocks to work with. They're not going to beat the Raptors.
No.
But they can be a sneaky, and they really, over the last couple of weeks, you have to understand there's a difference, though. Remember what I was saying earlier when the Sixers have been, mailing it in for the last couple of weeks. All the top teams, top 3-4 teams, have probably been mailing it in for the last couple of weeks. These guys have been playing playoff basketball for the last 2 weeks just to make it in the damn playoffs. So, of course, they're kind of more set for this tight tempo, win it all or lose it all type situation. So they're more ready for it. So they're actually that makes them more scarier. They have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
That Kawhi trade for Toronto was genius. Kyle Lowry has playoff demons in his head. He scored 0 points. He's a playoff choker, but he was great with Villanova. And he's a very good player. He just has that playoff choking. And Kawhi Leonard being on their team, though, I don't think the Magic are very good. So I think that Toronto is still going to go on. Toronto is still very dangerous. It's going to be Sixers, Raptors. I look at the Boston Celtics, though. I think the Boston Celtics are an elite team. I think the Celtics can win the Eastern Conference for sure. I think the Celtics, I really think that they can go to the championship, no doubt. I'm not moving on that.
I know that the Sixers beat them once this year.
Only once.
And typically the Celtics play very well against the Sixers. Brett Brown, I think, arguably, gets out-coached every time when he plays Brad Stevens. And the thing about the Celtics is you have a poverty of excess. You have so many good players. You get guys like Jaylen Brown sometimes or Rozier, they're not even in the flow. In other words, when you have so many good players, some guys are going to get out of the flow. You're going to put them in the game, and they're going to look out of sorts. And you also have some personalities and some egos on that team. So it's not easy to coach a team with so many good players. And there's a lot of teams who would like to have that problem.
The Marcus Smart injury is going to also help Jaylen Brown and Horford get time.
The other thing I'm a little worried about is that's going to be a super aggressive series if the Sixers meet up with the Celtics. And like you said, they've only won one game this whole year against the Celtics. It was a good game. It was a statement game. It was well needed, and it helps kind of break up that, we own you type feeling from the Celtics to the Sixers. My point is the one thing that people really haven't talked about much to a point is Embiid's knee. Is it? I'm hoping they're not putting him out there if his knee is worse off than what they say it is. But my question is, can he be aggressive under that basket? Because that's what he's going to have to be. He's going to have to be a big monster under that basket when he plays the Celtics or any other game. But
I think they play the Raptors next.
Yes, but I'm saying if it gets down to playing the Celtics and to get into the finals, it's going to be an aggressive series. It's going to be further into the playoffs, and will it come down to a stability on his knee?
Well, I think it depends on what you believe. One thing about this Sixers medical staff is you learn not to believe anything they say. They're calling this tendinitis, which just is an inflammation. It flares up here and there. And if that is indeed the case, then yesterday was a good step in the right direction because Boban Marjanovic played most of the game and had a great game. I think 14 points in the first half. And he really was they were able to rest. The fourth quarter was a blowout. It's what we call garbage time. It's rare to see all those guys empty the bench. But if you're playing against Boston, particularly against Al Horford, who's very crafty, in the way, again, getting back to Ben Simmons, Boston puts a wall up of 4 players, and they say, go ahead and shoot. We're not going to cover the shot. But they put a wall up, and that's what they did last year, and Ben Simmons was neutralized. There was no way he was going through that iron curtain,
the wall.
And you could expect that's going to happen again this year. So if it were Sixers-Celtics, it certainly would be a daunting challenge, and that's what the Celtics would have to do. They would have to go through either the Raptors or Sixers.
The Celtics have to beat the Bucks, which I think is possible. You stop the Greek Freak. Except Milwaukee, they're going to have a very easy series with the Pistons. And Milwaukee, the Greek Freak is definitely the best player in all of basketball. And if he stays healthy, he could be a Michael Jordan type. He could be one of the greatest players ever. I think he's already one of the most unguardable players. He should win the MVP award. If the Sixers beat the Raptors, that would be spectacular. Then Brett Brown is clearly coming back. The expectations were met. If the Sixers beat the Raptors,
I'm not sure.
Even if the Celtics sweep or beat the Sixers in 5, if the Sixers beat the Raptors, that would be an incredible accomplishment.
Okay,
the Raptors have Marcus Gasol, they have Ibaka, they have Pascal Siakam, which is unbelievable. The Raptors are the Raptors are the deepest team in the NBA, and if the Sixers win, it would be spectacular.
Okay, I agree with that. I kind of misheard. In my mind, I was thinking you were saying if they beat the Nets that he would definitely come back.
No.
But I don't think that is true. If
true.
they did get through the Raptors, I think that would be a statement and would be enough to get him to propel him into the new season as the coach, because that's a daunting challenge. So I do agree with that.
I think very likely he returns if they beat the Raptors. I'm not going to say it's going to guarantee him his job back.
Because maybe it's a sweep and maybe Jimmy Butler goes insane like Brian Colangelo.
I think honestly, one other thing I've been watching, and it's kind of been an unsung situation because of the Embiid's knee and other situation, is Tobias Harris, man. He's kind of been quiet, and you kind of brought it up with the trade. What is he woke up in the third quarter like many other Sixers did last night. But I'm going to keep my eye on him throughout the rest of the playoffs with him, because that's going to be a big key. Everybody's talking about it's almost guaranteed that he's coming back next year.
Well, I love Tobias's game. I love his game more than almost anybody because he can shoot. He can create his own shot.
But
he's like 6'9". He's so good.
I don't know if he's been able to insert his game into the Sixers. Like, he's just been quiet. Like, he's almost like he's not there.
It's because Jimmy is I bet Jimmy's not back next year. That's going to free up Tobias more. Jimmy was
You're right.
all
they
game
played
long.
the same position.
The Sixers kind of had a mind, the Sixers were just mind-F the first game, and that was very weird. But you're right, Toby has been struggling. He needs to get to the lane more.
Toby's been with how many teams? Is it 8 teams?
And you're right, and they've been
all bad teams.
Crappy, no playoff experience for Toby.
So here's the deal.
All dog crap
I think
teams.
that there's some truth to the fact you have to get tested in the playoffs. It's a different game. Everything looks different. And the guy's only a human being, and I trust his game. He's got very solid mechanics. He has good work ethic. I love Toby and Bobby. I mean, I think that's a great trade. And again, Shamet will be, I think, an above-average player. I don't think anything more.
I think we stole from the Clippers. It was a
I think that
trade.
was a great trade. and they really needed that. That was a game changer.
Let's do a little rapid fire here. We are Rover Sports. We are on 610 AM ESPN Radio. We are also from the RDR studios. We are going to do some rapid fire storylines right now. A fun part of our show as we kind of come to the home stretch here at Rover Sports. We're going to do rapid fire reaction. Russell Wilson deal. Was it stupid for Seattle to sign him for $35 million for 4 years and make him the highest paid player in all of the NFL? And will Seattle ever get back to a Super Bowl or even be contending with one with a quarterback making that much money?
I personally think that their back was against the wall. If they didn't sign him and Russell Wilson left, I think that would be a dumpster fire. But alternatively, giving him the money that they had to give basically depletes them of their ability to fill in the rest of the roster, particularly the Legion of Boom is no more and will never be anymore. And I'll harken back to the New Orleans Saints when they gave Drew Brees the big deal. It took them about 2 or 3 years to readjust, to change their cap, to have for the guys. But New Orleans went through a bad spell because so much cap money was taken up by their quarterback. So I don't think they had a lot of choice. I believe that Wilson really had a gun to their head and he was ready to go, ready to leave. Plenty of teams ready to have him. And he's the face of their franchise. So, yes, I think they had to make the deal. Also, yes, I think that team will be surging towards 500.
Guess what,
it will
Bruce?
be mediocre. That's my opinion.
But guess what? But you should have answered the question that it was a dumb deal. Because you said not signing him would have been a dumpster fire. To me, purgatory might as well be a dumpster fire. When you're average in life, it still sucks. Well, and look at the Chicago. Look, would you rather live maybe in the worst neighborhood in America and then become rich, or would you rather live in like a pretty crappy neighborhood for like 20 years? Look at the Chicago Bears when they had John Fox. Went 3-13. They got Mitchell Trubisky. They didn't had so much money with Mitchell Trubisky that they were able to sign Mack and all these great players. And now look at them. They went from the outhouse to penthouse. Look at Jeff Fisher and the LA Rams, a laughingstock, an absolute joke. They were at the bottom of the bottom. They get one good coach, they make one decent quarterback draft pick, and now they're at the penthouse. So I think this deal sucks. But go ahead. I hate this deal.
The point is,
sucks.
The market's been set, and it's not the worst quarterback signing. Russell Wilson is a proven quarterback. He has won the big game.
Yeah, he's great. You
got guys like Kirk Cousins out there making close to, if not more, or not close to
28 to 35 though.
Kirk Cousins.
He's making 28.
I'm just gonna say it one more time.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Cousins.
But you can afford free agents with 28. You can't with
Jimmy
35.
Jimmy Garoppolo is making how much money a year?
28. And the
What
Niners
has he
are
done?
and the Niners
What
but
has
that
he
roster that roster is good. Seattle's pigeonholed
Are
now.
they
He's
good?
the highest paid player in NFL history. Kirk Cousins is
You're telling me
Kirk Cousins is probably the 12th highest paid
You're telling me
quarterback.
Russell Wilson doesn't deserve to be the highest paid quarterback right now over a Kirk Cousins, over Jimmy Garoppolo, who have done squat.
The point is, the franchise, by giving him that money, they have screwed themselves.
It's
not
NFL,
about
it's
no
the
one's.
market, it's
I'm
not
not
the
arguing that
franchise.
Russell Wilson is not an awesome Hall of Fame quarterback. That's not the discussion.
My point is, it's not them; it's the market. That is the going price, and that's what scares me as an Eagles fan when it comes up
Wentz,
to
because we haven't
Wentz.
seen Wentz sign yet.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, how much-
again, today's news is that spinal compression fracture has not fully healed.
No.
At least radiographically, it's still in the healing phase. The good news is Carson says that he's unrestricted and he's targeting to be able to start OTAs without missing a beat. And presumably, again, being a sports doctor, it's all about pain relief. So the pain is under control. But as far as the fracture callousing up and basically fully healing, there's still a bit of time left. And that was really the news. There's not much football news here. In fact, we're starving for it.
Yes.
That's the only news we've gotten
But
in a
guess
while.
what? If I were the Eagles now thinking of it, Carson Wentz's value right now is not that high because he just got hurt. You have the injury concerns. He's never played in a playoff game before. The fact is, if Carson has an awesome year, they win the division, his contract is then going to be $36 million. If you sign Carson now, it might be cheap because of the injury. I think you should do it now. Sign him right now. While his value is so low, sign him now.
Well, it's hard to say. Like Doc, I mean, he hasn't been on the field for a full season yet. I think Carson Wentz is going to be fine. Overall, ultimately, I think he's going to be fine.
And if he's not fine, you're screwed.
But also, Carson's a competitor. I don't think he's going to take max deal. I really don't think he's going to get more than Russell Wilson. I still think he's going to be in the 25 range.
25 million?
Yeah.
Nick is making like 20 million.
Okay.
That's okay.
And Kirk Cousins is making 28, Jimmy 28, Aaron Rodgers. I think it's going to be 33 million.
I think it's going to be 25. Also, I believe
I will bet almost anything it's over 30.
Listen, I believe that Carson Wentz is a team guy. Just the way Tom Brady has done this for years. He's always taken less. He's always back-ended his deals because he cared about the team. If Brady can do it, Wentz can do it.
Carr's making 29 million. Matt Stafford almost 30 million.
Well, I'm not talking about that.
Carson Wentz is so much better than Carr and Stafford. So much better.
Yeah, but look at
it's just the way you structure deals. I believe Howie is a master at doing the cap, and he will work it out so that Carson will be reassured that his money's guaranteed, but it'll be back-ended. That's my opinion.
If it's 25, it's an absolute steal for you guys. It would be unbelievable.
But look at this. Maybe not 25, but it's going to be under 30. It's going to be at 28.
28 is still a steal.
But here's my thing is, look at all those franchises you just met. The Niners will not do anything at this rate as far as I'm concerned. Detroit with Matt Patricia ain't going to do anything with that cap with $30 million on Stafford.
Agreed.
The Vikings, I think, have shot themselves in the foot. I think they went for it all this year, and they thought they were just that one quarterback, just a little better than Keenan, and then they were going to come in and everything would be fine. Wrong. Kirk Cousins sucks. I'm going to put it out there.
He doesn't suck, by the way. He is better than Case Keenum. The problem is Mike Zimmer is overrated. That defense got old in a hurry, and they had the easiest schedule, and they fluked into that NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Kind of fluky with that Saints game.
And they couldn't even make it to the playoffs this year with Kirk Cousins. Let that sink. He's a choke
He
artist.
doesn't suck. I think he's still pretty good.
Listen, I don't care if you can throw it over the moon. If you can't make it to the playoffs and contend, you suck.
He lost to the Bears, the great Bears.
Let's do the next. This is rapid fire. Let's go. Let's start firing.
Next one.
I came out firing, sorry.
I loved it. Chris Davis. Was that the most entertaining story in baseball? Did you feel sorry for Chris Davis that he couldn't get a hit? And would you have liked to see it go on, the streak of 68 at-bats without a hit?
From a sadomasochistic standpoint, the answer is obviously yes. It would have been. Luckily, he has a guaranteed salary, so it's not like you could cut the guy. But I found it somewhat of a fascinating sports story just because of the hitless streak. And I did find that interesting, and we did check it every day. And it's kind of like Lou Gehrig's the opposite of that streak. This is certainly a streak of complete futility, which is mentionable.
Yeah.
How about you, Al? Did you enjoy that in a certain way, or did you feel bad for the guy?
I don't think I felt bad for him. It's just, I think as a professional athlete, something like that burns. I mean, it's just, you can't. I felt bad for him, but also didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that much.
You don't have any emotional.
I got no dog in that hunt. I just found it was interesting to follow that.
I'm going to ask Al Zafiri this. You pay attention to a lot of pop culture. Are you sick of the Game of Thrones hype, or are you in on the Game of Thrones hype?
I am not a game. I love Game of Thrones. I got hooked. A friend of mine said a couple of years back, to probably right before the last season started, was, watch Game of Thrones. I'll think you like it. So I started watching it. I ended up catching up to it and had to wait 250 some odd days for the next show to come on. If it was any longer, they may have lost me. They may have lost me totally.
So they were just the very end of losing you, but now they're back. Are you in for this final season?
Yeah, I want to watch what happens. I enjoy. I don't know if you guys watch it, but Game of Thrones is a very good show.
Yeah, I like the show,
and I'm glad it's back, but I'm also glad it's ending. There's certain things that you just want to see, like, go out on top. Certain things that just went too far and too long.
You don't want to see him jump the shark. If somebody lasts too long, they run out of plot lines.
Let's list the shows. Lost, Prison Break. Ray Donovan used to be very good.
Ray Donovan got much worse. A lot of people who watched Ray, including me, it just got stupid. It jumped the shark.
It's rare to see a show that's not a comedy.
But there's some
last
shows
more
that
than 4
just make
seasons.
it. I think Billions is having a really good comeback.
I think HBO was known for their shows. Even The Sopranos towards the
Sopranos.
end, the last season got really, and even the way
was still
ended,
successful.
The way it ended, it was tough
Some
to
people,
watch.
it doesn't.
But it was still successful.
There's no finality. I think people thought that there would be more Sopranos
There was always
because you
talk
didn't
of the
feel
movie when he was
you didn't
alive.
feel a satisfying end. But obviously,
Well, True Blood
James
got-
Gandolfini died,
Yeah.
and that was the end of the show.
True Blood had a lot of the same problems. That show was one of the most popular shows on TV, and it was on HBO. It went 2-3 seasons, and then after that, dropped off.
You know what show really dropped off? True Detective with McConaughey. And that first season was
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson. Those guys, the interplay between those guys was fantastic. And then the next season was so boring. It was unwatchable.
Vince Vaughn was
Vince
just...
Vaughn, who I find, a very funny guy. To put him in a serious role was a big mistake. But there are certain shows like that where they just tank, they go off the moon, and you're done.
Absolutely. So we maybe got one more question, and it's a 10-2 lead. It was 6-1 the last time we were in the studio for the Washington Nationals with Aaron Nola. I think the Mets still score about 6 or 7, but I think the Phillies are going to win tonight's game.
Here's your last question. I'll tell you right now. The Phillies pitching is struggling from top to bottom. It looked like things were getting better in the bullpen, but now it looks like Robertson's getting an MRI of his elbow, so hopefully it's not what we think it is.
Hopefully it's just a tendonitis,
Right.
to use that
The
word again.
fans are very sour on him anyway.
I mean,
sour on Robinson.
Pavetta had to wait almost 30.
Look at that guy.
Pavetta had
That
to
guy
wait.
threw his bat. Oh, that could have been dangerous.
Pavetta had to wait 30 minutes to pitch again, so he probably came out a little cold. But, I mean, I would hopefully they continue to tack on and don't allow – they really need to go in. Pavetta has to go a good 6 innings, 7 innings if he can, and then they go 1, 2, 3 throughout the rest the 8th and 9th, get it done and be done with it.
Willie the Buffalo Ramos, one of my favorite players because of that nickname. Also a pretty good player in his own right for the Mets. But, yes, the Mets have a lot of good pitching. The Phillies pitching is obviously a concern. And, guys – we are 1 week away. Next Tuesday's show, it's going to be so exciting. We're going to do an NFL draft, maybe a mock draft. We're going to talk everything NFL draft going down in Nashville in the Music City. And we are just 8 days away from the NFL draft. The schedule gets released tomorrow, and we are going to talk everything draft next week. Enjoy the playoffs. Enjoy hockey, basketball, and everything. This is Rover Sports signing off. Thank you, guys. God bless, and have a great week.